All right,
Tell my
we are recording.
followers.
Tell some people on Twitter. I just told people on Blab, so people are starting to file in. But tell people on Twitter, and we will get going here.
Oh, interesting. All right, I'm tweeting this out.
Cool. And I'll just retweet that. So how have you been?
I've been good. Things are real good. Did this tweet work? I'm not seeing. Oh yeah, there we go. And it's funny, this tweet sends a GIF too, which is funny looking.
It sends a GIF?
Yeah, it sends like a GIF file, like an animated GIF.
Interesting. Okay.
Work in progress. And there's like an animated GIF and you talking or anyway. Yeah, things are good. Can't complain. Baby's been good. We're going through kind of a sleep regression here, but that's getting better.
Yep.
So things are fun. We deployed a bunch of new stuff, announced it this week.
Yeah, I saw that.
We changed the typography too in high rise.
So let's talk about that. So you were so nervous about that this came up in discussions like a handful of times over a period of weeks.
So I'm glad I was nervous about it. So most of the feedback has been awesome. There's some people who are like, "Oh my God, I love it! Great choice. Things are more readable." There's some detractors, like eight people, I think. So I think overall, I think things are okay. There's definitely been a couple people who've noticed. They've had really good like, "Oh, this was too small, so we fixed it." So there's been some, good feedback back. And then some people are just like, "I hate it." So I don't know, I don't know what we're going to do about that.
Yeah.
But,
well, that happens. You're not going to probably do anything about it. Let it settle and see how it shakes out. And
yep.
Yeah.
But overall people seem to, there's a lot of lovers of it. Yeah. So a lot of great, so good stuff happening.
Excellent. So since we're doing Blab, so everybody knows, people are free to ask questions, and we'll take some questions live and maybe pull some people in a video, or if not, we don't have to do that either. So feel free to ask questions. We've got a nice list of questions over here on the left now. Looks like the interface has changed a bit. So we can jump into those, or anything else you want to talk about that particular set of releases?
No, I mean, it's, it was, no, nothing huge, just the typical work we've been doing, but yeah, I was pretty excited about it. Well, one thing again that I keep learning over and over again is like I've started asking people in these newsletters to like, hey, if you have a chance, please share what we're doing on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and I've been sharing some pre-composed tweets and stuff, and it's gone a long way. Like people are like, like, whoa, what happened? Why is there so much love on High Rise all of a sudden on Twitter? Simply just because we asked, which we haven't been doing. But man, you and I have been like experiencing this constantly. Like as soon as you just do a little work to like ask people like, hey, we could really use this, you to subscribe to YouTube, or we could use a tweet. Like people help us out, but you got to like do the ask.
We talked about this before. There's this thing in politics where candidates need to ask for the vote. You actually have to fit. I mean, you don't have to, but like there's been some interesting, I think there's been some studies on this. I haven't read the studies, so I don't really know how thoughtful they are or how, scientific they are, but about how it's mostly been done on smaller scale too. So it's not massive elections, but by simply like, if you're at a podium and you're going against another candidate, by just simply asking for people's vote, by saying like, please vote for me. And you'll see that too when you see political signs like near polling booths. They'll say like vote yes on number 42, or like punch yes on whatever. It's just this sort of reminder. It sounds so stupid and obvious that like, of course you're going to vote, so you know that you're going to vote for somebody, but simply asking someone to vote for you, or reminding people to vote for you, puts a thought in their mind, and they'll do stuff. And we've seen this with the subscription here, like you said, on YouTube. Just asking people, like people could have subscribed to the YouTube channel. Had we not asked, there's no chance we would have had the number of subscribers that we have, just the way it is. So,
yep. And like the distance went through this too, right? Like the distance, like
Yeah.
Waylon did some cool, like, I forgot it was in the newsletter that went out or something. She just reminded everyone like, hey, we could really use like the reviews on iTunes, and whatever. And the traffic now to the distance is awesome. They're like the #1 business podcast. That is really exciting for the distance.
Yeah, and this is kind of a good little story, which I'll talk about, which is that so we do this podcast called The Distance, and you can go to thedistance.com and check it out. It's a podcast we do about businesses that have been in business for more than 25 years, small privately owned companies who've just stood the test of time and are not flukes because they've been around for a while. Anyway, we this is sort of an experiment, this idea of trying to do a podcast like this. So we hired Waylon. Waylon runs the podcast, but originally we hired her originally as a writer. So The Distance was not a podcast at first. It was simply a long form stories about small businesses that have been around for 25 years. And we couldn't quite get traction on it. Readership was sort of flat, wasn't really going anywhere. The stories were really well written. They were good stories. We had great photography. We did like hand-drawn illustrations for each thing. We put a lot of effort into it, but they weren't really getting anywhere. And then we decided to switch formats into a podcast. We did some more work there. And then we had to hit a certain number. We told Waylon and Sean's who produces the podcast for us, who said, look, we've got to get a certain podcast up to about 6,000 listeners. One of the podcasts has to have 6,000 listeners. If it doesn't, we just can't continue to justify the investment we're making in The Distance. So it's going to have to go away if we can't do this. And so they had a bit of we lit a fire under them, and they went out and did a lot of great work and asked a lot of people for help to get the word out about it. They were more aggressive on promoting it themselves because they knew they kind of had to. And they hit the milestone. And since then, it took, I forget the data, but it took a long time for one podcast to hit 6,000 listeners.
Yeah.
And now podcasts are hitting about 6,000 listeners in a couple of weeks. So there's now huge momentum. iTunes has featured the podcast. It's currently a featured podcast on iTunes. It was the #1 business podcast on all of iTunes. I think now it's #2. It may have moved up or down since then, but it's just a great story of trying to find the right format. Like the idea is still really good. The format wasn't quite right initially. We moved over to podcasts. We're doing both on podcasts and an article. And then people who went to the site, they weren't sure which one to check out. And we just went all in on the podcast and then asked for people's help to promote it. And it really has worked out great. So that's another sort of example of just, hey, can you give us a hand? If you like this, give us a hand and get the word out.
Yeah. And dude, there's a lot of great lessons in that story, from like just being patient with your projects to also balancing, like giving yourself some stuff to shoot for. Like, like a lot of people I think work on their projects without any form of goals, right? Without any kind of number they're trying to shoot for and improve on. And like, just by simply, you guys, the Distance seemed like it was kind of, just kind of idling a little bit. And then just by giving them that metric, it was just like, man, okay, now we have something we have got to achieve. And it was like this, this forcing effect that like made, now the thing is like, going gangbusters.
Yeah. And it was on the line. You got to put it on the line at some point, and we did. And it's going great now. They're doing a great job. Yeah. Let me jump over to some of these questions. We got a nice little lineup here. So I'm going to pop this one out here up on the screen. I like this improvement. This is a really nice improvement where you can click the answer questions button and now everyone can see the question.
Yeah, this is sweet. Thanks, Sean.
Nicely done. Yeah, really nicely done. So do you guys read drafts of each other's blogs before publishing? For example, David's huge, massive blog post about not chasing unicorns last week. Sometimes we do, excuse me, but most of the time we don't. The only time we'll pass something by each other is if we think there might be something slightly controversial in it and we want to get another set of eyes on it. Like, do you feel like this is going to come off wrong? That's typically like, how's this headline? Or do you like I feel like the point's good, but I'm not sure how it's going to be received. Would you mind giving me your opinion on like that? But we don't do it for proofreading, and we don't do it for co-writing. Like, we don't co-write. And so David just published this. I didn't know he published it. It was originally actually going to be a talk somewhere, and he just published it. And so some people will ask David or I internally, some people in the company who are posting something on the blog on Signal versus Noise to review it first, or if we have any thoughts on it. But it's not a policy by any means. And I would say fewer than 10% of the things that go up actually get reviewed by somebody prior to going up. So anybody can publish at any time. And typically we only review if someone's uncomfortable with what they're about to say because they're not used to writing in a public forum, or if David and I are wondering, like, how's this going to come off? Because we try and talk about things as openly as we can. And sometimes, you know, the way we're going to try and, like, we want to address a controversial topic. We want to make sure that we address it in a way that it doesn't sound like that it comes off properly, that we're not saying the wrong thing, even like, because sometimes you can be that way. So we're just trying to be sure that that doesn't happen. So thanks for that question. You want to jump into it? You want to take one, Nathan?
Sure. I'm not having trouble. So all the questions are just down here?
Oh, on the left-hand side, or maybe you're not seeing them. Maybe you are a host, though.
I'm only seeing, I can't like scroll. I only see Sean's, Omar's, what's the topics.
Interesting.
So and have you guys?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so you can't scroll? Like, just wrong. Put your, no? Okay,
no,
I'm able
like
to scroll.
Stuck.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, here, I'll jump into another one then.
All right.
Jeremy is asking, have you guys talked about Trix? Or have you guys talked about Trix, Basecamp's open source text editor, yet? As far as talking about it, I'm not exactly sure you mean on the show or publicly. But so for Basecamp 3, we just built a brand new, as part of it, we built a brand new text editor into Basecamp 3. We tried a variety of text editors in the past, and they all sort of fall short in a few different ways. And so we decided to make our own. And we'd actually made our own previously as well, but it was all based on content editable, which is, there's some shortfalls and shortcomings to that approach, which is what most of them take. And so Sam and Javon went off and built a custom text editor in a radically different way than most, and spent a good almost 18 months actually building it. And it's really, really good. And so we open source that. And if you go to Trix-editor, Trix as Trix-editor.org, you can check it out. It's open source now. You can download it and install it in your own apps or sites, and contribute back. But I'm not sure if there's any specific questions about it, but
and Javon wrote, I believe Javon posted some stuff on Signal versus Noise about it. And I also believe it was a Hacker News thread. So there's a discussion on Hacker News about Trix.
Yep.
If you're looking to see other people's questions about it. Javon was in there. Maybe Sam was in there too, answering questions.
Yeah. And the main thing that's, I'm not going to get technical about it because I don't know all the technical details about it. But one of the things that's really nice about it is that it works across desktop and mobile perfectly. So the previous editors we used and some of the off-the-shelf ones have different editing and formatting capabilities on different platforms, and you could lose some of that formatting as you switch between platforms. So we have that now, and you can also paste images, not only like just drag images in from the desktop, but you can paste images directly from a clipboard into a text editor, which is a huge workflow improvement when you're trying to just take a quick screenshot of something and paste it in for comment or for thoughts from somebody else or documenting something. So some great changes there. Plus, it's going to allow us to do a variety of other things that we just couldn't do because before we were using someone else's thing and the APIs weren't where we wanted them to be. And anyway, it's really nice, and it's sort of the cornerstone of Basecamp is publishing and writing and editing and stuff. So we wanted to make it really nice. There's still some issues with it we got to tighten up, but for the most part, we're really happy with it, and we open sourced it.
And I think Jeremy just kind of asked a follow-up question on the, I saw on these on the right-hand side, but he was asking if it's like a big success, if there's like a lot of adoption. And I mean, I'm maybe going to put words in your mouth here, but like, you guys didn't build this for adoption. It wasn't built to be an open source project. You guys built this for Basecamp, just like Rails was.
Right.
Rails was a tool you guys built to make your lives easier. It didn't really matter if it was going to be open source or get a lot of adoption, which I think is an important point, because the way you guys do things is the opposite of, I think, of what a lot of folks do, which gets them into trouble, which is they think of something they can open source, and then they would put all their effort into trying to open source this thing. And you guys don't. You guys make the thing that is going to work for you, and then see later if you can open source the thing.
Yeah.
Which is a much more useful way of way of doing things.
Well, for us, it's about extraction, so we're going to build it anyway. And then, I don't even know if Sam and Javon had talked about open sourcing Trix right from the start, or like eventually they figured out let's do that or whatever it is. But it's not really about, the success is not measured by how many people adopt it. If no one else adopts it, that's entirely fine as well. But we want to open source it so other people can use it, because if they want to use it, great, and people will contribute hopefully back and make it better. I'd love to see some people explore some collaborative editing tech in it, and there's a variety of other things that could happen in it, and different tools and a table editor, and who knows where it all goes. But really, if no one else used it, that'd be entirely fine with us as well.
Yeah. And when you start, I mean, I think the problem lies when you start making stuff that doesn't come from an extraction, you risk, making something that, like, you're just imagining what the use cases are. And I don't know. I mean, it's something I live and breathe, and I know you guys too, but it's like all of Basecamp. You guys don't make Basecamp because of specifically like all these things you imagine people are going to want. I mean, you do some of that, I guess,
sure,
but it's like most of it is like you have these pain points yourself. And that's why what makes it such a great product is because you are so close to the problems you're trying to solve.
Yeah, you try. Real quick follow up. I saw someone asked about does Trix parse Markdown, and not in the traditional sense, but it could, and it does actually. There's a sort of a Easter egg way to.
Was it added back? I thought it was removed.
No, I don't think it was added back. But the point is it can do it.
Yeah.
We just haven't exposed that right now. There was a way for a while to. I haven't checked. Maybe it has come back, but to basically, I think it was like shift click in the editor or command click in the editor or something, and then you can paste Markdown and it'll parse it out. It won't save the Markdown code, so it's not really displaying Markdown, but it will sort of translate Markdown into bold and italic and that sort of thing. So Markdown is, I mean, I'd actually like to see more Markdown support in Trix at some point. The thing we've always struggled with is that Markdown, and before that it was, what was it called?
Textile.
Not before Markdown, but there's something else called Textile. And is that in the technical world, people love this stuff, but it's very complicated for most people because there's a bunch of unintended consequences. People use hash signs, and they use bullets, and they use asterisks for all sorts of things that are not meant to be bullets or strong or emphasized or whatever it is. And like all of a sudden you get these weird things that start to happen, and then things start to break on people and they don't know why. And so it's really a complicated thing. It sounds really easy. And for those people who know Markdown and know these formatting languages, they're not really languages, but markup languages or whatever, that is great. And I use them for myself. Like I write a lot in IA Writer or in Draft, and then pull stuff over. And it's like frustrating that the formatting is not retained. So this is something we want to improve on at some point. And there is sort of kind of a way to do it, although I think it's hidden right now. But it's something we'd like to make better down the road for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Let me see if there's any other. Hey, we'll take this one here. What do you like using more, Blab or Hangouts Live? This is interesting. Like, I really actually prefer this. I prefer Blab. There's so many reasons why, and I'd like to go into some of those. And Nathan, I won't take too much time, so you can jump into. But this feels like, what I love about this is that the audience is present. That there is, you know that you're talking to people, and there's people receiving it. Like I can tell right now, there's 115 people watching this. There's questions down the left or down the right, down the left, and there's comments on the right, and there's activity, and there's liveliness, and I can throw questions up and stuff. And all this stuff is possible in Hangouts and so at some level. But there's just a real feel of community and sort of participation here that's built in from the start, which I really happen to like quite a bit. I think one of the things that we do like about Hangouts is that we can do screen sharing, and I'm sure Blab will eventually build that in, but that's a big part of it. So if we don't have screen sharing planned, Blab is actually, I think, a more comfortable place to hang out. If we know we want to do screen sharing, then Hangouts seems to be a better fit.
Yeah, I mean, it's right.
Excuse me.
I don't have much more to add except for the fact that, I'm the one who sets up most of these Hangouts, and it's usually only because of an expectation that we might be showing work with each other. I've been saying, I love using Blab. These have been a lot of fun, and you're right. Like the interaction with people and getting questions, doing the hot seats have all been awesome. and in a way, yeah, like, you know, that you don't get from Hangouts. But yeah, but just doing the stuff that we want to do is showing our work just hasn't been here. But it's not, I don't also want to force Sean like to, you know, do this
No, of
stuff.
course
Like, it's
not.
one of those things too. It's just like they know there are, do a lot of blabbers want to be doing screen sharing? Maybe not. So it's totally fine to use multiple tools to accomplish this job, to like talk to our audience. So yeah, I don't really have a strong desire to really pit one against the other. They both have stuff that they're both very, you know, good at uniquely.
The other thing I'll say about this too is I've noticed the video quality is better. It's not as high resolution as far as I can tell, whatever, but I don't see any skipping. And sometimes when we do Hangouts, there's a lot of pausing and skipping. So it might be because the windows are smaller. You know, there might be some strategy in that. I'm not sure, but it does seem like it's more consistently. Also, my CPU isn't going crazy. It feels like, for some reason, it just feels more reliable in that way.
Someone asked, someone asked, Realized, Basecamp, and Highrise are each unusually committed to dog fooding, which is great for the product. Why? I don't know how to add someone's question here. Do I star it?
No, I don't think that they're not technically asking questions on the right-hand side. There's like a way, there's a command to actually ask a question, and then I think it shows up in the questions area. But just
anyway, I'll answer this question. Just because like dog fooding is really important to me. Like when I took over Highrise, like I didn't have this insane vision that like, oh my God, we're going to do like X, Y, Z, and like all of these things are going to happen. But like what I did have in mind was like, we're going to move fast. Like every few weeks, we're going to announce some great stuff that we've added. But then the second one was like, we're going to get like really close to the product and the problems it solves. And it comes from a lot of places where like, so like I have this history of like creating, you know, I created this company called Inkling back in 2005. We were the second batch of companies to go through Y Combinator. We originally built this thing because we wanted it to be, we thought we were going to be building it for ourselves. But it turned out like we didn't, as we built it and we talked to customers, and the market that we found didn't look like us. It was mostly large enterprise businesses, governments, and it was fine. And we made a living doing it. But I always felt like we weren't doing the best work we could do. You know, we talked to our customers constantly. We went to, you know, hung out with them, you know, listened to their problems, solved them as best we could. But it was always like we're always just in creating solutions because of what someone else tells us their problem is. And we have to do a good job of listening and trying to solve those problems. But I always felt we could do better. And like I encountered this again at like the Obama campaign. I was on the Obama campaign, the tech team in 2011. And we were working 2011-ish, whatever. And we were working on something called Dashboard, which was like the Facebook for political campaigns. Like we were building like the social network for political campaigns, but we didn't, again, it was like this thing that we didn't use much. And you know, we were building it for all these other people, and we brought in all of these advisors. And I swear it was funny. Like all these advisors were like, why don't you guys use this internally? Like, you know, you guys are using all these other tools to manage projects and to kind of like learn what other people are working on in the campaign. Like, why aren't you using Dashboard? And it's just like, there's really no good answer. Like we should be, because there's a lot of shit in Dashboard right now for the Obama campaign that actually sucked. Like I'm really proud of the tool we built, and it really helped us, help the Obama campaign. But really, we were not all that thrilled with it. In many, you know, it was slow. People didn't understand it. And it was like, we knew though, if we were using it ourselves, there'd be a lot of pressure to fix a lot of this shit, but we weren't using it. So there was no pressure. So it's just like constantly, I keep bumping into these places where it's just like, you know what? We would do a better job if we were using this thing ourselves. And I just see it with Highrise. Like we keep the stuff that we add that like we are in front of every single day using ourselves. It's good stuff. It works well. It's fast. And I'm really proud of it. It's when we start trying to like make all this stuff for other people where it's just like, it's the first thing that breaks. It's the first thing that like, I think when I look at it, it's like, man, this is kind of janky. I don't think it does the job as well as it could be. So I don't know. I live and breathe dog fooding just because over and over again, I see that it works. My best work comes out of it. So.
Same thing. I think the other thing is, when you use what you're building, you are the best you have the best chance of judging quality. When you're judging quality on something that you're not using, you're judging it sort of by proxy. You're imagining if it, no matter what research you do and the whole, like, you're still imagining what someone else feels about it, how someone else feels about it, and if it actually does the job or not. But when you're using it yourself, you just, like, does this do what it needs to do? Like, this is what I need to get done. Does it help me make progress on this or not? So I think it's also brings a level of quality and like completeness to the product, because you don't have to wonder and guess. The other thing is that, and if you get it 95% right, for someone else, dozens of people have different versions of the other 5%, and then you don't really know what part of that remaining piece is important. So, anyway, I think it's super valuable. So we actually used Basecamp 3 from about a couple months in, when it did nothing, and it has done so many different things over the time of developing it, all throughout the development process, and it actually replaced a few different tools for us. And so we've been using it with bugs and all from the early days, and that's how we shaped it, and that's how it changed radically and drastically over the past 6 months. The more and more we used it more seriously. So, well, hey, we're actually we have 3 minutes. Let's see here. I'm just scrolling back. Oh, someone asked a proper question here. Let's see. How do we meet originally? Do we have 3 minutes to talk about that or not? Yeah.
Well, sure. You and me. How do we meet originally? I mean, Chicagoans. Someone.
I thought it was Match.com.
That's right.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I had found out about Basecamp or Ruby on Rails maybe from like a Slashdot post. So, I mean, that kind of brought me into like the orbit of what you guys were doing. But then I think we bumped. Yeah, I think the first time we met was just like at some sort of networking thing at like, I don't know, Chicago Entrepreneurial Society or something like that. I don't know. Dick Costolo is there. Is it Costello? Costello? Costello.
Yeah.
I don't know. I talked. I did a little talk about what we were doing. It was in like 2005 or 6 or something like that. And yeah, you were just there. I mean, that was like the first meeting, I think. And then, and I wrote about this a while ago, but it's like one of those things where it was a loose connection, and I don't know. I just try to keep it alive, and that was it. And then going back full circle to the beginning of this talk, like when I started Draft, I had in mind, like, Jason would maybe be interested in something like this. I know you write a lot. You're interested in good tools. And so I sent you a quick, like, 1 or 2 sentence email that was like, hey, I launched this thing. Would you be interested in advising me or chatting about it sometimes? And you hit me up and said, sure. Yeah. What do you think? Let's just get together and talk about some product design stuff. And we did that for months. And then, now here we are doing a podcast together, and I run High Rise. I mean, it was again, one of those things where it's just like, you've got to ask for things that you want, and they lead to more things if you keep this stuff going and keep the momentum going.
Yeah. It's cool how this stuff kind of comes together where, in fact, like we Javon, who works for me now, used to work for you way back in the day. And how there's these sort of orbits, these planets or these things that are sort of close together, and like sometimes they bump into each other, and that's when something happens. And sometimes it's about timing, and sometimes it's about opportunity. And like, for example, the High Rise thing was like a timing thing. Like, we were actually trying to sell High Rise originally, and we just, at the end of the day, it didn't feel right. And so my first thought was like, there's 2 people I thought about who would be awesome to run High Rise. And Nathan was one of them. And the other was actually Adrian Holovati, Chicago-based guys who I've known, who are fantastic. But Nathan had run a few different companies and had a lot of, I used Draft, and it's fantastic. I know Adrian was like super, super, super deep on his sound slice, like complete amazing thing that he's just like so personally dedicated to at that level. But anyway, it's just like, man, let's spin this off. Let's put someone in charge of this who's awesome, who can run this, who's run things before, and who can build a team and make it fucking great. And so that's like, it just all lined up. But what's cool is it was like a 7-year arc or something. Like, you know, it just happened. Eventually happened that way.
Yeah,
that's always cool. I mean, I wrote a post on actually, I think I'll cross post this to Medium about how I ended up a couple of years ago. I wrote a op-ed in the New York Times, and which was kind of mind blowing to me that the New York Times wanted to write an op-ed by me, or run an op-ed by me. And after I published it with them, I sat down and thought, like, how the hell did this happen? How did I get this opportunity to write an op-ed in the New York Times? And I traced it back through like a dozen people. And it was this opportunity led to this opportunity, led to this opportunity. This guy knew this guy, and he knew her, and she knew him, and the whole thing. And like, eventually, I landed an editor from the New York Times wrote and says, like, liked what you said, and liked your TED Talk a lot. Would you mind writing something for us? And then, you know, like, wow, that's how that all happened. So you just never quite know. You never know how all the dots are going to connect.
Yeah, just keep doing stuff. Keep publishing your stuff.
Keep making stuff and doing stuff, and who knows what will happen. So cool. Well, anyway, we've gone a little bit long.
Here is a link to our YouTube channel.
Oh,
please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Nice. That's actually interesting. We can't do that on Hangouts, right? Because no one's watching it in Hangout. Like, no one else is watching it inside Hangouts.
That's true. I do have like a watermark that like encourages you to subscribe, but I don't know if you actually see it in the Hangout. Anyway,
yeah, I'm not sure how that works. But anyway, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We will upload this video because Blab made it possible to upload the video to YouTube. So that'll happen probably later tonight. And thanks again for watching. We'll do some more of these Blab ones. Maybe we'll finish off Blab this week unless we want to show some work.
Cool. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Talk to you soon.